وقالوا اتخذ الرحمن ولدا لقد جئتم شيئا إدا تكاد السماوات يتفطرن منه وتنشق الأرض وتخر الجبال هدا أن دعوا للرحمن ولدا. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the glorious Quran says that a grave sin has been committed. They have said something so grave, when they say that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has begotten a son. And then we ask that question, what if God has a son? What if someone is out there, either in Mars, either in Pluto, in one of the galaxies, or with God, somewhere on our own planet here? Who is the Son of God? What is that son going to be like? That is the question for today. What if God has a son? Religious people believe that God does not die, does not slumber, does not sleep. God does not go hungry, does not have sexual relations. And the Son of Man, has the attributes of man. The son of a tiger, has tiger's attributes, and then each species, having their own attributes as well. So it probably might be safe to conclude that if God has a son, then the Son of God must have had the attributes of God. In Surah Al-Ikhlas, Allah says, Lam yalid wa lam yulad, that Allah begot not, neither was he begotten. For we to have thought of the idea that God has a son, then we would by that mean to say that God must have had a sexual relation, because if there is no sexual relation and then there is any idea of sonship, then that could not have been a son at all. We could have it could have been like any other creature that was created. So here we are talking about a son, like the idea of a son that was begotten. Then for God to have begotten a son, there must have been a wife, and then he probably created the wife himself, or maybe the wife might have been come into existence the same way God had been, because we don't know how, we have no idea of how God came into existence. It's a question that has kept philosophers, scientists, religious folks busy and thinking. So wherever this wife of God might have come from, if God has a son, then there's going to be a form of sexual relation, and then the wife of God must have been pregnant for a certain number of time. Probably, with different species have different periods, of pregnancy before they give birth. So we might not be able to think or assume how long it's going to take. And then this Son of God must have been begotten after this pregnancy, to say, fine. And you have in different religions, for example, in Islam, we have the Maliki Yawmiddin. We say Allah is the King, the Lord of the Day of Judgment. And then in several other religions as well, it is believed that God is a king, and you do not have another king except the king dies. So while we have a king who is God, and then we have a prince who is the Son of God, then this prince is going to be a prince forever, because he's never going to be at any point assume that position of kingship, because the king is not going to die. And thinking about the idea of God having a son, why stop at one? Why stop at one? If God could have thought, fine, I need to have a son, then why stop at one? Because there must have been many reasons that could have led to wanting a son. Companionship, the thought of, okay, fine, what does it feel like to have something like me? And then he has created the angels. They don't probably look like him. He has created the stars, the galaxies, the moons, and then he created the animals and man. and then he feels like, oh, he wants something of his own self, then why stop at one? And then why not daughters, beautiful daughters of God? Why not much more sons? And how would these sons, this son of God, fixing on that, how would this son of God look like? God is invisible, something we cannot see. We can't see him, that is what many religious people believe. So if we agree that we cannot see God, and the Son of God is expected to have the attributes of God himself, then this Son of God will also be invisible to us. And then what is going to be the function of the Son of God? What is he going to do? We have a God who we believe rules and governs, every one of us. So probably the Son of God might maybe appeal to God on behalf of man. But here also we have a contradiction, because we believe that God is, all merciful, and then he's all hearing and all knowing. So if God hears everything and he knows everything, perchance, we probably might not have a need to even maybe, seek this God through the Son. So conclusively on that, the idea of God having a son, that son, or the idea of a son of God, if we have that type of son, maybe that idea might be completely useless. It's probably there is probably no need for God to have a son, because we probably start to think, okay, what's going to be the function? It's going to be a prince, and then it's going to be a prince forever. And then if God were to have that son, then we can conclude or continue to assume that, well, God will probably not stop at one, and then there will be daughters, and then probably then there will be some other attributes like, maybe like jealousy and envy. In another sense as well, since God is perfect, so they might have this, attribute of perfection. So these are just theories, and these are things we can actually think if God, has a son. Or to have even thought that probably God has a son, maybe then we must have concluded that probably God looks like man. Is it so necessary to attach a son to God? And we have answered that question, that if God had a son, then I probably think he's not going to stop at one. He might have thought of daughters and other sons as well. So the idea of attributing son to a God, I think is the same way Islam has put it. It is quite grave, and it goes against logic. And if we were to believe that, we are going to get caught in a web of paradoxes, contradictions, and inconsistencies. But what do you think? Does God have a son? Islam says no. And this is the most rational, logical belief that I have heard in the history of debating if God has a son or not. Thank you.
Heal TV. Let's heal the world.